Okay, welcome back in. I'm going to continue my 32 and 32 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. As you can see on your screen, I'm going to slowly scroll up. They finished with a record of 4 and 13 this past season. A very disappointing overall year, to say the least, considering they had hopes and expectations in competing with that AFC South. Unfortunately, their wheels came off the train at the beginning of the season. They just derailed their season at the beginning, and unfortunately, they weren't able to mount any sort of a comeback, to say the least. So we'll take a look at their schedule. So they again, I always skip the regular or the preseason because it really means nothing at all. So they would start the season off in the month of September winless, going 0 and 4. They would win their first game against the Indianapolis Colts. They would then lose to the Bears, dropping to 1 and 5 at that point. They would beat the Patriots, getting to 2 and 5. At that point, it was like, okay, you're 3 games below 500. You still possibly could come out of this hole. And then the unthinkable happened. They would go on to lose 4 straight games after that, heading into their Week 12 bye week. And even after the Week 12 bye week, they would still lose to their division rivals, the Texans. They would defeat the Titans the following week, lose 2 games to the Jets and Raiders, respectively, beat the Titans. So they basically swept Tennessee, and then they lost at home to the Indianapolis Colts. So I'm trying to scroll up as much as I can. Unfortunately, it's not letting me. But yeah, they would go on to lose the last game of the season. So they would finish with a record of 4 and 13, finishing fourth in or the third in the AFC South. And again, 2 straight seasons where there's no postseason action for the Jaguars. So we'll take a look at some players' stats for spits and giggles. So Trevor Lawrence, obviously their quarterback under center. He would finish with a 60.56 completion percentage, 2,045 yards, 11 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. So the interceptions weren't bad, but touchdowns, or if you only have 11 touchdowns, that's like less than a touchdown a game, which isn't going to cut it in this league. The wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr., would finish with 1,282 receiving yards. He had 87 receptions and 10 touchdowns, so not too bad of a season. Brenton Strange, the tight end, would finish with 411 yards. He had 40 receptions and 2 touchdowns as well. The running back, Tank Bigsby, he would finish with 766 rushing yards on 168 attempts and 7 rushing touchdowns. The other tight end, Travis Etienne, would finish with 558 yards. He had 150 attempts and 2 touchdowns as well. On the defensive side of things, Trayvon Walker, the defensive end, would finish the year with 10.5 sacks, 31 tackles, and 2 forced fumbles. Devin Lloyd, the middle linebacker, would finish with 61 tackles. He had 2 sacks, he had 1 forced fumble, and 1 interception. And Devin Lloyd would also lead the team in interceptions as well, which is kind of mind-blowing. 1 pick, 61 tackles, 1 forced fumble, and 4 pass deflections. And we'll take a look at their special teams. So Cam Little, the kicker, had 27 field goals on 29 attempts. So that's pretty good, only missing 2. He would finish with 93 on it. He would finish with a 93.1 field goal percentage. And Logan Cook, the punter, he would average about 50 yards every kick. He would finish with 3,359 yards and 68 total punts. So, just going to take a quick little peek. It should show the stats for the team. I haven't done this in a few days, so just bear with me here. No, that's not what I'm looking for. I got to go back one more time. 4 and 13. No, that's just their overall record. What am I missing here? Gosh. What did I do? Team. Here we go. Team. There we go. This is what I'm looking for. So on offense, they would finish with passing yards. They would finish 24th in the league. They had 3,477 passing yards, 24th in the entire league. You can see Cincinnati finished first. Receiving yards, they would finish 24th as well. It makes sense, 3,717 yards. First downs, they would finish with 87 First downs, which would be 21st in the league. Rushing yards, they would finish 26th with 1,729. And points, they would finish with 320 total points, which would be 26th in the league. So take a look at their defense. So when it comes to the sacks, they only had 34 sacks on the year, which would be 28th in the league. Interceptions, they were 30th in the league with 6. So over the entire team, they only had 6 interceptions, which explains why their middle linebacker led the team with picks, because he had 1 out of their 6 interceptions. Forced fumble, they were dead last in the league with 30. They were 32nd with 5. And when it came to tackles, they would finish second in the league with 713 tackles. So they had a lot of tackles, but unfortunately they weren't able to get a lot of fumbles or picks. And we'll take a look at their special teams. So they'd finish with 27 field goals, as I previously mentioned, which would be 19th in the league. Their field goal percentage would be 3rd overall with a 93.1 ratio, or 93.1%, I should say. The extra points, they would finish 26th in the league with 27 extra points. And their extra point percentage, I don't understand how a team can finish 1st and 8th. Maybe it's just because the amount of extra points that you've gotten. I'm not sure. But they were perfect on this season. They were 100%, but for some reason they were 8th in the league overall. So I find that very confusing. If anything, you should just have a tie for 1st if you're 100%. But I've got a funny feeling it's because if you look at the amount of extra points they made, which is 27, compared to Detroit, which is 64, that's probably what they're going off of. So a little confusing for me, but they're the ones that come up with the stats, not myself. So yeah, a very disappointing season for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Moving forward, it's going to be tough. They did let go of their head coach, Doug Peterson. I wasn't really surprised. What I was surprised about was how it took so long. Normally when a team is struggling during the season, there's a lot of changes, mainly head coaching changes, that take part in that aspect. But unfortunately, they waited until the end of the year. Maybe they felt bad. They didn't want to let him go midway through the year, but some changes definitely had to happen once the season finished just a few weeks ago. And I'm sure that whatever they decide to do moving forward when it comes to head coaching, and maybe they have to get special teams coaches or whatever it is, defensive coaches, offensive coaches, whatever the case may be, is that they do in this offseason, I guarantee that Trevor Lawrence will have a bit of an impact, because he didn't have a bad season. Just finished with 11 touchdowns and 7 picks, like I showed you at the very start. So I think it's going to be tough for the Jaguars moving forward. I know this is going to sound like a bit of a prediction. I want to wait until August once I have all the information from all the offseason moves that they have made for each team. But I'm going to say right now, I'd be very shocked if they finished 1st in that division, only because the Texans are still going to be competitive. I think the Colts are slightly, and I mean slightly, better than the Jaguars. I know the records, you would think, well, the Colts had 4 more wins or 5 more wins than the Jags did, but the Colts, in my opinion, they're also kind of like a roller coaster. They could be really hot and they could be really cold. So it's week in and week out. It's very inconsistent for me. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Jags finish 3rd again in the AFC South. They should be better than the Titans, considering they're still going through a rebuild, in my opinion, or they should be going through a rebuild, in my opinion. So yeah, I think the Jaguars, they're probably going to be on the outside looking in when it comes to next year's postseason. But again, maybe they make a splash move in the offseason, or maybe they bring in a legendary coach that who knows what moves can happen. But yeah, I think for the Jaguars, it sucks because like Trevor Lawrence is a very good quarterback, and obviously he led this team to a division title 2 years ago. But ever since then, they've really kind of fallen off the tracks, and I'm going to sound like a broken record saying this again, but they really kind of shot themselves in the foot to begin the year by losing so many games in a row. So you can't go on a 4 or 5 or 6 game losing streak and expect to make the postseason. All right, that's going to take care of this review for this 32 and 32 series as I looked at the Jacksonville Jaguars. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. Until next time, and as always, take care.